Hey there, I'm Tracy Spears, speaker, author, coach, founder of the Leader Lab, and head cheerleader for anyone wanting to play bigger. Speaking of playing bigger, this week's guest is the Honorable Catherine Taylor. How about that for an official introduction, right? Kathy Taylor has most recently served as the Dean of Collins College of Business at the University of Tulsa. In addition to her work as securities and franchise law attorney, her previous positions include Mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma Secretary of Commerce, Tourists, and Workforce, CEO of Impact Tulsa, an education equity nonprofit, and Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Thrifty Car Rental. Taylor has served as a board member of the Sonic Corporation, Bank of Oklahoma, National Car Rental, and Dollar Car Rental. Kathy has previously served as the Vice Chair of the Women Administrators in Management Education for AACSB, on the board of 36 Degrees North, a base camp for entrepreneurs, and on the board of Stitch Crew, a business accelerator. Currently, she serves on the boards of the Tulsa Public Facilities Authority, the Tulsa Area United Way, and the Lobeck Taylor Family Foundation. Taylor is the ship sponsor of the U.S. Navy USS Tulsa LCS-16, a founding member of BEST, a network for expanding the pipeline of women in positions of influence, and a member of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition's Oklahoma Advisory Committee, co-chaired by the former Oklahoma governors Brad Henry and Mary Fallon Christensen. She has been honored by numerous civic and education organizations, including the University of Oklahoma College of Law, the Tulsa Historical Society, the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame, the Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice, and most recently was awarded the Raymond and Nancy Feldman Lifetime Achievement Award by the Tulsa Global Alliance. Now that's the official bio, but I'm going to add to it. I think she might be the most generous person I know. I've been fortunate enough to hear stories about how she's helping a lot of people that no one will even know about. I've watched her donate big auction items to benefit local nonprofits, and I have watched her speak passionately about how to better support women and underserved communities. So listen, I'm super excited to introduce you to this week's guest, Kathy Taylor. Kathy, come on in.
All right. Hey, Tracy, how are you?
I'm super good. How do you feel listening to that body of work?
Oh my gosh. It makes me, it's amazingly tiring, I think. I can't believe that all that has happened, but it's been a lot of fun chapters in my life. I've been very, very, very fortunate to have a lot of diverse experiences and great chapters. And obviously, I'm very honored that people have recognized that. And I think that helps role model for others, I hope.
No kidding. Role models. What a great segue into this. As you know, the name of this is called Shift Out Loud. It's about those moments when people, something happened, it created a shift in their life, and they were never the same after that, or the shift sent them in a direction that made them play bigger. Some shifts aren't great shifts, let's agree, but we always learn from those. But let's tell the audience a little bit about you. Just kind of give us a sense, although I know a lot of people locally know about you. We do have a far-reaching audience. So talk a little bit about you. Where did you grow up? Give us a little bit of background.
Sure. I grew up in Oklahoma City. I'm one of four kids. I'm the third of four. My two older sisters are 12 and 15 years older. Then I have a younger brother. So I grew up in Oklahoma City in the public school system. Was on the debate team. Was on the editor of the newspaper. I may have been in the pep club, but I don't think they really asked me to participate very much.
You like when I think of pep clubs, you're like the top of a pep club, man. Like you're cheering everybody on. I love that.
And then I went to the University of Oklahoma and got my undergraduate degree in journalism and then my law degree and practiced law in Oklahoma City. And after that,
was that always the goal? Like, you remember being asked as what you wanted to be when you grow up, and were you like a lawyer?
No, I wanted to be a journalist. I think I got an A++ on a paper in sixth grade. And I was like, that's it. That's my journey. I'm going to be a journalist. I love writing. I love reading. But a shift happened in my life. I lost both of my parents within 12 months of each other, my first year in college. And that was a financial shift. I needed to figure out how to pay for college. I actually didn't think I would complete college. I was wrapping packages at Streets department store in Oklahoma City and working the midnight to 6 a.m. shift daily Oklahoman. filing glossy pictures. Some of you may not know what glossy pictures are, but when you print them out, and they would pull them if there was a big news story about someone. So that was my job, is to make sure that the pictures were filed. But I had to rethink supporting myself because I was on my own. My older sister was married and had kids. My younger brother went to live with one of my sisters, and I was in college, so I was on my own. So that made me rethink my future. And as much as I loved journalism, I didn't know that I'd be able to make a living. And so I took that love for writing and research and debate and went to law school. Took a year off between undergraduate and law school, earned a little bit of money, traveled for a job, and then went back to law school.
Wow, interesting. When you look back on that time and some of those jobs that crystallize your work ethic, when you were talking about working at midnight, I think, gosh, that serves you now, right? Just the work ethic that you have.
Still work at midnight. Yeah, dude.
I may or may not have gotten some emails from you late at night. Yeah. I don't know. So you go to law school at the University of Oklahoma. Have you always lived in Oklahoma?
Always. Until I was an adult, I always lived in Oklahoma. I lived short periods of time in the summers. I worked in New York City in law school. I worked in Dallas in undergraduate school. I worked in Washington, D.C. I was a tour guide at the Washington Monument.
What?
Yeah. I know, like 555 feet and 5'1" inches tall. Some other trivia I could share with you as well. But I wore one of those kind of Smokey the Bear looking outfits with a little hat and ran the elevator. So
I'm going to have to see a picture of that at some point.
Hopefully there are.
I have a freaky fact. I had a friend who dated a guy who was a park ranger. And when they were renovating the Washington Monument, I got to go up to the very top of it where the big red light is at night.
Yes.
And apparently not very many people get to do that.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I'm sure you did, though.
Yes, I did. And I was wearing the park ranger outfit. That's exactly what I wore.
Well,
except for a dress, a polyester dress. I didn't get the pants.
Nice. Very.
Yeah.
So you're in DC, you're in all these different places. Why come back to Oklahoma?
It was home base for me. I've always loved Oklahoma. I feel like it gave me the University of Oklahoma, my public school education in Oklahoma City. It really gave me the opportunities to make a difference. And that's really how I was raised by my family. We weren't wealthy by any means, but my parents would always invite people in, would help others, small businesses that we owned. And so I was really raised for service. And Oklahoma was the best place for me to do that, the place that I cared so much about.
Well, when you say that, you're wired for service, I mean, that would be exactly how I would describe you. And there's so many things that you have your hands in that nobody even knows about. But there's a lot of things also that we do, experience. Tell us a little bit about Mother Road Market. That's kind of a big right turn, but let's get to that too, because tell us more about, you not only moved back to Oklahoma, but you have made a difference in the community and in so many ways, from changing a city block, right, to not only that and all the work that you do. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, I think I know, obviously I had financial struggles early in life, and I lost my parents. And when I was able to release myself from this, when I invested in buying National Car Rental from General Motors with my husband and two other partners, and we sold that, I was able to make financial commitments to things I believed in. And we started a family foundation, gave back to the universities that educated us. And then actually my daughter Elizabeth came to me one day in my office, that there's a better use for this 1939 grocery store warehouse than your office. It should be a food hall, and you should move down the street. I did. So I really have to give her all the credit for Mother Road Market. I was there on opening night, helping run the commercial dishwasher and bussing tables because we were overwhelmed. But it was really, and I'm proud that I raised her in that way as well. When we did service together when she was a kid. I would take her I was single a lot of the time when I was raising her. And so I would take her with me, whether I was negotiating corporate transaction. I say she knew what a leveraged buyout was at age 11.
Nice.
Or I was doing service, she was with me. And so really, I was able to financially make the space for motherhood market available, but it was totally her vision.
I love that. Listen, I mean, you're super impressive. She's super impressive too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Sure.
But it's fun to have it. It marries our love of transportation and cars with our focus on supporting entrepreneurs. And her view was, food entrepreneurs are often kind of left on the side to manage on their own. We do a lot of things for tech entrepreneurs, but food entrepreneurs are often literally trying to hold on the smallest part of the safety net. And so the goal was, how do we support food entrepreneurs scale and to understand how they can support their families? And so that's really what Motherhood Market is a group of food entrepreneurs that our foundation supports. And what we hope is they graduate from Motherhood Market and scale. Like Big Dipper, one of our first, was an ice cream store. They're going to have 5 locations soon. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just groovy. I love going in there. I love all of the options.
It's a good place. It's a good community building place too, because it's kind of neutral territory. It's not downtown. It's not the suburb. It's very approachable. And so you see everything from red hat ladies to people that are homeschooling their kids, people from all ethnic groups because of the broad ethnicity of food. And we now do 2 accelerator classes in Spanish every year. So it's a great place to build a sense of community, which I think is something that right now in our world, we desperately need that.
Boy, that is understated for sure. Agreed. So I've skipped a bunch of years in between that, but the Motherhood Market, I wanted to make sure we talked about that. But I'm going to take you back for a bit. So because you mentioned it, and I don't want to miss this, because this was a big shift for you to go from, you're going to be, a lawyer. Kind of take us from that, fill in the gaps between that and the Motherhood Market, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. So I was graduated. So interesting story I was actually admitted to law school on probation. And I graduated 3rd in my class. So, maybe the law school test, if anyone's taking those, aren't a good judgment of how you're going to achieve in law school. And I went to work basically for the firm that would pay me the most to give me a clothing allowance. And it turned out to be a great decision because it was a small firm. And when my friends were 3rd and 4th sharing transactions, I was front line negotiating for major clients, for energy companies, franchise companies. And so I was a partner at the firm. I got great experience. And then I moved to Tulsa. And instead of negotiating on behalf of, dozens and dozens of clients, I became the EVP and vice president of Thrifty Car Rental. They had just gone public. We then bought Dollar Car Rental and Snappy Car Rental and a couple of other car rental companies, about 5 car rental companies in other parts of the world, in Europe and New Zealand, Australia, Asia. And so I was frontlines leading all of those negotiations. It was an amazing learning experience for me. I learned a lot about culture that I should have known, that sometimes bit me a little bit. So
tell me more about that.
Well, in the Japanese culture, you don't just run in like an American and start negotiating hard. You have to have the relationship. You have to develop the relationship. And I was running hard, and I ran in to negotiate. And basically, what they did is they had 3 negotiating teams, and I was kind of staying up 24 hours negotiating. They were trying to teach me a bit of a cultural lesson. So I learned after that I really needed to explore the culture of a country, not just the language, but really the culture of the country. And it really precipitated a tradition of our family, which is whenever we go on vacation, we always take a cooking class. And because we think the food of a country really tells you the history and the culture. So anyway,
Nice.
practiced law, and then went back to the private practice and ultimately became a partner in purchasing National Car Rental from General Motors and led those negotiations.
Okay,
Which was great fun.
I want to go back to two things. One is you got a clothing allowance. I love that.
Yes.
So I've never heard of that. And two is, so what have been your favorite cooking classes? What country were you in? And is there anything that you still cook to this day because of that?
Yes, I think, well, one is Thailand, is an amazing London-trained chef that we took. Elizabeth and I actually took a class in Bangkok, and it's where I learned that Thai spices aren't really Thai spices. They were really from South America, brought by the missionaries to convert people in Thai to Christianity. Kind of interesting. So I do have a beautiful Thai dish that I used to cook a lot with a gorgeous like egg lace over it. And I would say the other would be Italy, where I both, learned to make great sauces and pasta, and also learned to make limoncello.
Oh, well, now you're speaking my language. I love all of that, and limoncello for sure. Don't you have a cooking something coming up soon?
I do. Yes, I'm going to a cooking camp in Provence at Julia Child Summer Home with 7 people I do not know. And the theory of the camp is, when did we have to start having recipes to cook great meals? And so we'll just go to a lovely market in Provence every morning. We'll pick out some fresh ingredients, and then we'll all come back, have a glass of rosé, and cook for the day.
Okay, well, I can't think of a better sounding vacation than that. I'll await the report back on how that goes. But you'll be in her actual summer home. Like this isn't like a set or anything. This is literally home, right?
This is Julia Child Summer Home, right? So it should be very inspirational.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it. Okay, so going back to when you are at Dollar Thrifty and you're negotiating, doing all the things, what were some of the shifts for you? So you had a shift in learning about cultures. You had a shift in learning how you were in debate in high school, as you said. So that was probably in your DNA. But what were some of those shifts that happened for you? And were there any that you would like to forget, and were there any that were memorable that you were just super grateful for?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of memorable ones. One is we were purchasing a company that was 50% owned by the French and 50% by the Germans. And we were having the negotiating meeting in Paris. And I literally had to get up late. The Germans and the French were as if there was a war still going on. And I literally had to get up and leave the table and take a break during the negotiating session to try to come back and bring them back to, the goal, the main purpose. So that, and then I think the difficult one for me was when we sold to Chrysler Corporation. So I'm an entrepreneur by nature. My family, my mom and dad were entrepreneurs, selling to a Fortune 100 company, and then being a part of that structure. And this was, 20 some years ago, it's almost 30 years ago, was difficult because it was a manufacturing culture in Detroit, Michigan, automotive industry. There were no women. It was me. And I left the general counsel, left the board meeting, and came back, and it was all men in the room, and they're laughing. And I walk in the room and they stop.
Oh.
And so after the meeting, I said to my colleague, who was the CFO, I was like, what was that about? And he said, you don't want to, they were telling a joke. You don't want to know. I don't know, but I can only imagine. And I was not going to tolerate that culture. And so I actually wrote the letter to the Chrysler board. And there were some other incidents that happened that were more aggressive as well. And I went back to practice shortly thereafter and started franchise practice at Crow and Dunleavy, and was, glad that I stood up, did that. I don't know that it changed anything, but if I hadn't said something, then there would never be an opportunity for other women to to not experience that kind of behavior.
Have you always been an advocate like that? Have you always done that? Or do you look back where there are times when you were like, I should have been more of an advocate? Because I look back on my life, and I've said many times on this podcast, I was just a giant chicken to do all that stuff. So I'm not proud of some of the things that I just kind of laughed along with, and I didn't try to affect change. So how about you? Were you always just so aware of how important it was?
I think I was somewhat obsessed with the women's suffrage movement in college. I did a lot of research papers on that and on the Equal Rights Amendment. I actually changed my voter registration from Republican to Democrat on the day that the Republicans nixed the Equal Rights Amendment from their platform. I'm sure no one in America knew I did that but me, but I did. So I think that the issue of my mother was a very strong woman. At one point in her life, she smoked a pipe. So, no,
Nice.
pretty, and so I think I was always aware. I haven't always taken the actions I wish I'd taken because sometimes you're in a situation you don't know how to handle it. Do you handle it with humor? Are you direct? I mean, I think where I am at my life now is I'm politely direct, but I'm direct. But there are certainly times when I haven't been in a position, I couldn't afford to lose a job.
Right.
Been in a position to do that.
Yeah. I think that, when I think about all the people that have been super brave, it isn't great big giant acts of heroism as much as it is that just speaking up, just being present, being an advocate, being consistent, right? Like that to me is the most heroic thing that somebody, and I look back and I have benefited greatly from incredibly brave women in my own career. And yet it took me too long to meet them in the advocacy piece. So I'm trying to make up for it now, but I'm
Good.
yeah, I'm trying. Listen, so tell us, how do you end up being mayor of Tulsa? So that's the first time I knew of you, was when I was voting for you to be mayor. So
Thank you.
what leads to that?
So once we sold the company and I could really follow my passion in public service, I became Secretary of Commerce and Tourism and Workforce Development for Brad Henry. And by the way, I didn't support Brad Henry when he ran for office. So he was courageous in hiring me. And I will say that once someone suggested, and it was Robert Button, who was the state treasurer at the time, who I had lunch with today and has been my friend for 30 years and a great mentor. But he suggested I apply. Once I applied, then, the competition was on. And so I became Secretary of Commerce and recruited companies to Oklahoma from around the world and just saw that Tulsa was falling behind. One day I got a call from David Foran, who was former U.S. Senator, Governor, and President of OU. He was on the American Airlines board. He said, Kathy, you all are going to lose that American Airlines base.
Oh,
You need to do something. And that I knew people that worked there. I mean, they were good, they're union jobs, they're good jobs, they're people that worked there multiple generations. We could never replace those jobs. One of our two largest employers in Tulsa. And so I put together a plan at the state level with our president pro tem and our speaker and governor, lieutenant governor, and even our federal congressional delegation. And then I went to Tulsa and I said, okay, you guys, it's your company. You need to help us out. And the spark just wasn't there. And I literally walked out of the meeting and went and filed for mayor. I'm not suggesting that's how you should do it, by the way. I was like, this is a train wreck. I can't watch it happen. And so $50 to file. It's a pretty easy check. The hard part comes later.
right.
And I hired a corporate branding firm because I worked political campaigns as a volunteer, but I didn't know anything about running one. I hired a corporate branding firm to help me do my campaign, and I won by a very thin margin. I'm a Democrat running against a famous name Republican, who multi-generational political family, and I think I outworked him, and I wanted it. I wanted to make a difference, and I loved that job. It was an amazing job, and it's the most diverse job you can have. I mean, you're over zoo and the police department, the sewer system and the performing arts center, right? So there's no more there's no better training ground for anything than a strong mayor form of government, which is what Chicago has, that New York has, or Boston, because you run the city. It's 5,200 employees and huge capital and operating budget. And I was elected April 4th, took office April 10th. I delivered a budget May 1st. And then the BOK Center went, I don't know, let's say 20 some million dollars over budget or something, about 10 days later. So it was trial by fire. Great. I loved it. That's what I get energized by solving problems and bringing teams together to solve problems. And there were plenty of problems to solve.
Oh my gosh. What was the worst part and what was the best part of that job? You just have said solving problems might be the best part. But as you look at that, and tell us, for the people that don't live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, how the American Airlines thing ended up as well. So,
well, the American Airlines, we presented to, then at the time the president was Gerard Arpey. They not only stayed in Tulsa, but they've continued to make investments. We've continued to make investments in the city of Tulsa, and their employment is as strong as it's ever been. And they've got significant investments in physical facilities. I think it would be very difficult for them to ever leave. And they're still one of our top employers. So it's a great story. And I have a great relationship with, with a lot of people still at American Airlines. So, and what was the worst part of the job? I think learning the police department. I didn't have, it's a paramilitary organization. That's not my background. I can read financial statements all day long, but it's mainly a male organization. I'm a 5'1" blonde. There were a lot of dynamics. The police department were difficult. We were under a federal consent decree for racial profiling when I entered office, and that was, again, that was in 2006. So that was the most difficult. I'm not going to say it was the worst, but it was certainly the most challenging for me to learn. When I got into office, the police chief had been put on probation. We had a temporary police chief. I had to hire a police chief. Really hard to recruit a police chief when you're under a federal consent decree. So the tensions were high with the community and the police department, and the leadership was low within the police department.
Wow. So during all of that time and, going through navigating all of that, were there moments that you thought, oh my gosh, I want to not only be the mayor, I now want to, did you have bigger political aspirations? Did you want to make a difference on a bigger stage? Or was it really your love of Tulsa that you were in the political arena for?
Yeah, it was really my love of Tulsa. And a number of, the mayor club's a small club. So you get to know other mayors across the country. A lot of my mayor friends ran for U.S. Senate or Congress and still serve. And they tell me those are really easy jobs compared to being mayor. And you don't really see the change that you're making. I mean, you're one of 100 policymakers or one of 400 plus policymakers. But as mayor, you see the change every day that you're making. You see the impact on people's lives. And to me, that's what kept me working 24 hours a day and inspired me.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Any desire to, I don't know, what are the rules? Can you be mayor again if you wanted to? Do you have any aspirations of ever again? No? No,
I don't. One of the people that I've mentored since I was mayor is actually running for mayor this year. And so it's exciting for me to see people that just like people helped me along the way, people I've helped along the way, now standing up to make a difference in the city. Mm-hmm. I went back to work for P.T. Bynum when he became mayor. He didn't have an economic development director, and I met with him to see what I could do to help. He was like, well, you wouldn't consider being my economic development director, would you? And I said, well, actually, when I was Secretary of Commerce and Tourism, my tourism director left and under difficult circumstances, and I couldn't take on another position myself. And so I called Governor George Nye, who is known in Oklahoma as the most amazing tourism person ever. And I said, Governor, I know I'm a Secretary of Commerce, but I'm going to ask you, would you come work for me as the head of the tourism department? And he said, I will, but if anyone ever asks the same, I want you to say yes. And so I didn't really have a choice with GT.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So you did that. And then, yeah, take us through that because
So,
a lot of changes that got.
so governor, so I was in the past, they'd had a commerce secretary, a tourism secretary, and a workforce development. And I ended up being all three and the executive director of the Department of Commerce, so, the recruiting agency. So Governor and I came to work for me he said he'd do it for 2 years, which he did. And then I left and ran for mayor. I completed my time there. And at the end of it, I called the governor and I said, because of the American Airlines, because I started the American Airlines project when I was Secretary of Commerce. And then when I saw Tulsa wasn't really on the field, I said I would run for mayor, and Brad Henry supported me. And
Was there a chance it was going to move to Oklahoma City? Is that what would have been the play that it would have
Dallas,
gone back to Dallas? Okay. Wow. I can't even imagine our city without American Airlines. Like,
I know.
yeah. Yeah. So thank you. I'll just say that. So during that time and so you're with GT, how do you end up at the University of Tulsa? Tell us a little bit about that shift.
So I was driving down Highway 1 in California, and I had always kept up. So Brad Carson was named president of the University of Tulsa. Brad and I have been friends for a long time. I hired him for his first job out of law school. He says I made him work really hard. He tried to not do projects for me because I was a little bit demanding. But we had always maintained a friendship and a relationship with he and his wife, Julie, and their son, Jack David. And he called and said, I want to talk to you about something, and I don't want you to reject it out of hand. It was an interesting way to make a job offer. And so he asked if I would come be the interim dean at the University of Tulsa at the business college. And I first thought he meant the law school because they were also without a dean. And he said, no, the business college, you're a business person, you've been successful, I want you to come lead the business college. And so I, was semi-retired, traveling, having some fun, leading on some boards. But I said to my grandson, Taylor, I was talking to my daughter and Taylor about it. And I said, I don't know. I don't have experience in higher ed. And my grandson, who's an old soul, pointed to a mountain and he said, see that mountain over there? I've never climbed it. But when I get the chance, I'm going to try and see if I could do it. You should do this. And so I did.
Wow. That's a lot of presence. Yeah. Amazing. So when you did that, and so you leveraged, and I will say I watched you as you took that job on, and you created so much of a social media kind of buzz, and it was really exciting. And so somebody as a citizen of Tulsa, not knowing you at the time, but kind of watching all of the attention that was being put on that during a time when it was needed, let's agree. And so what did you love about that job? Because you recently just resigned from that. So we'll talk about
that. I completed my time.
Yes.
I don't like to say resigned or retired. I think those two words. But anyway, I did complete. Brad asked me to come in and turn the college around and bring the morale up and the recruiting, the enrollment. And I raised money and I did all of those things. And what I loved a lot of things about it. The faculty is inspiring. The students are amazing. They're top-notch, top-quality students that care about making a difference in the world. And so being able to mentor them was great. And then, frankly, one of the most rewarding things was meeting people who had graduated from the university and having them tell me their stories about how the university impacted them.
Nice.
I was fortunate to go to Dubai in January at the invitation of one of our alums to come to visit. He was originally from Afghanistan, immigrated to the UAE when he was 8, and his first trip out of the United States was to come to the University of Tulsa. We had been at a college fair, and he fell in love with the recruiter, the story of the University of Tulsa, and he came to Tulsa, and he was a freshman on 9/11. So this is a Middle Eastern 18-year-old kid in Tulsa, Oklahoma on 9/11.
Wow.
And he came to visit, and he pulled his TU ID out of his pocket and really almost had tears in his eyes. And he said, I have never been treated so warmly. I couldn't go home for 4 years because once you went home, you couldn't have immigrated, you couldn't come back. And And the university said, we'll save your place if you want to go home, but we don't know when you'll be able to come back, all the geopolitical issues. And so he stayed. And he has just the warmest feelings for the University of Tulsa and the impact that they made in his life. But I heard those stories all over the world for people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's making a difference from there, right? Back in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Isn't that something?
Mhm.
I love that. You were about to tell a story about somebody that you mentored at the university. And so for the guests, that we had a little technical glitch, but we're back in business now. Do you want to retell that story?
Yeah. So one of the things is being able to mentor students. And one student who's very involved in student government, I got to know, come by my office, see me on a regular basis. He was on my student advisory council, and he really wanted to be involved in city government. And so he is Asian, and I helped him get on the Asian Affairs Commission of the city of Tulsa. And he's probably 10 or 15 years younger than anyone on that commission, but I guarantee you, he's the most enthusiastic, has the most vision, and is making a difference. And that will inspire him, I believe, to stay involved and make a difference in our community.
I love that. I love that. And I know that you literally just, transitioned out of,
Thank you.
You're welcome, out of Tulsa University. And I know how sad that was for you that chapter is over. And yet, tell me what's going on now. What's the next shift for you, Kathy?
Yeah. So I'm going to do some traveling that I haven't been able to do. I've always traveled. I've traveled with my family, but I've traveled a lot for business and then kind of add on a couple days here and there. I'm actually traveling for me a lot, but I'm also still focused on issues related to gender equity and also community building. So I'm started an organization with a group of women called BEST. That is a networking group intended to increase the number of women involved in positions of influence, and also a venture fund that invests in women businesses in the care economy, because the care economy, is where women are often pulled either with low wages or pulled with no wages because they're still the primary caretakers in our society. So that is going to be a big mission of mine. And then the other thing is community building in Tulsa. So together with two of my friends, I'm opening a store called Good Together. And the store is focused on inspiring people together to have authentic conversations around a dinner table. And so I'm excited about that. It's always been a dream of mine to do that. Retail business isn't easy, but I'm excited about that.
Oh, wow. So that store, and where will that store be located, by the way?
At 11th and Lewis on Route 66, right across from Mother Road Market.
Okay.
So I'm pretty excited.
Very nice. Very nice. And you also have an apartment complex. You want to pitch the apartment complex?
Well, I'm an investor. My daughter and son-in-law are building a NOMA, stands for North of Market, because we're in the Tulsa Market District. It's a 250 plus apartment complex, amazing amenities, really elevated living. It's got a dog park and it's got a community space that overlooks downtown Tulsa. It has an amazing gym, co-work spaces, retail stores, and all within walking distance on other places like Mother Road Market on Route 66, and really preparing for what is going to be an exciting year in 2026, which is the centennial of Route 66, America's first highway, the Mother Road.
Oh my gosh, that'll be exciting. I am watching, even on the news now, the preparation for that, some of the things that are going to be happening. But that store, what made you want to open the store, Goods Together? What prompted that?
Well, so, in my family and always at my homes, I always say, a house isn't a home unless you can use it for causes and to bring people together that you care about. And so I've always, whether it's 4 people or 100 people, I've always loved bringing people into my home and gathering people for conversations. I've done political events, I've done nonprofit events, and I've just loved to cook. I've had, people for dinner and wine, of course, always. And so I think some people are uncomfortable with that. They haven't been exposed to it. And I want to inspire people because I do think authentic conversations happen more in people's homes than they do on social media, than they do in formalized debate. And I think we're at a time in our country, in our world, where we need to do everything we can to inspire authentic connections and conversations. It's a that's the underlying mission of the store. And we're going to have great fun products. I was talking to two female entrepreneurs today who are going to design a line of products for us for dog. My dog is going to have a little area in the store, Lola's Corner. And so it's going to be, I'm really excited. And it's kind of back to where I was in a way, in a smaller way as mayor. And that is really being able to directly, impact a mission. And so that's it. And my love of Route 56 and cars. So
I love that. I
mixes it all together.
Listen, I've been fortunate enough to be invited to a few of your home gatherings, and I do meet the most interesting people at your house. So, and I know that's intentional. You're very intentional about when you invite people, and you. What impressed me most is you even let us know who all was going to be there, so we could do a little investigation ahead of time and learn a little bit about each other. It's been impressive to watch how you are so good at curating that experience for your guests. So I'll just say thank you for that.
Oh, thanks. That's a great compliment coming from you.
Of course. Now listen, I know we're almost at the end of our time, but do you have a personal mantra? Like, is there something that you just, like a mantra that you live by?
Well, I'd say there's a saying, and that is, never doubt that a small group of committed people could make a difference in the world, because it's the only thing that ever does. I think I live by that. I think the other thing is, people often ask me about, had a lot of different jobs. And I think one thing is everything I've learned builds for the next job. It's very transferable. But the reason I have had those opportunities is because if a door is cracked open for me, I don't walk by it. I at least look behind it to see what's there. I'm not saying I walk through every door. There's some doors I'm glad I haven't walked through. But I do investigate it. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of change. I'm not afraid of learning new things, trying my skills in a new arena. I mean, obviously I've been in government and business and higher education, state government, local government, K through 12, education equity. And so I always just look for those opportunities.
Listen, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because first of all, you have to be looking for them and notice them, because I think doors fly open for people all the time, but very few people that I know are intentional about, hey, wait a minute, is that a crack in the door? Should I investigate it? So I love your curiosity about that. And I think it's going to lead you to things for sure that, I don't know that you'd find any other way unless, it was just, hey, wait a minute, how did I know you? And I met you here. You introduced me to a couple of people, one being Joe, like very, very casually. It's a luncheon when you were being honored, and, you said you should know him. And I was like, oh, and I mean, I got home, I got back to the office, and I sent him an email. I was like, okay, I should know him. So like, to me, that was, opening a door, and what a lovely exchange I've had with him since. So thank you for that. But I just love the idea of a bunch of, people walking around, little doors are opening, and people are going in and looking and investigating them. So I love that that's the way you live your life.
I do.
Okay. So before we go, when we first got on this call, you have two grandchildren that you got to spend a little bit of time with. We do not have to talk about them at all if you do not want to, because I don't want it to be too personal if you don't want it to be. But tell us what you did this weekend. Just tell the audience what you did.
Yeah.
What a weekend is like with Grandma.
7 basketball games driving around San Francisco and Marin County in 2 days. 7 basketball games in 2 days. Then saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Never seen a Planet of the Apes movie before, so didn't have a lot of background, but saw that with a giant bag of popcorn, and then did a virtual reality as a Star Trek warrior fighting the Klingon. So that was my weekend.
That sounds like a great, amazing weekend. I love it.
I had a daughter, so she's got 2 sons. So I enter a little bit of a different world with them.
Oh my gosh. All right. Any parting words? Anything that if I'm someone that's, earlier in my career, any piece of advice other than walking through cracked doors, anything you'd look back and tell your 21-year-old self, or any advice you would give the audience?
Yeah, I think maintaining relationships, really maintaining the relationships throughout your life, because you don't know when those will come back, either to help you, whether it's help you in a job search or help you in a difficult time in your life. So I'd say network, spend the time maintaining relationships. Don't always just keep your head down at your desk.
Beautifully said and beautifully done, by the way, my friend. I'm experiencing watching that, and I think that's incredible advice. So listen, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today, and look forward to next time.
Okay, great. Thanks.